Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show. Sincere apologies for the delay. Very, very prompt usually, but internet, connections have been testing me. Now I've finally found a location where I seem to have settled down quite nicely. So we're back.
Rory, as your boys VfB Stuttgart so aptly demonstrated, it's never too late.
Yes.
7 minutes into injury time is still, you have enough time to score. So
yeah, absolutely, this is very true. So I'm very happy to be able to provide internet that is good enough to stream tonight's show. As you already have seen, it's just me and Peter this evening. Mark has been stricken by tooth-related horribleness, so he's not with us this evening. So we shall be diving into Match Week 28 review. We'll also be chatting a little bit about the Hertha Berlin head coach change. Of course, BSC going back to old familiar. So we'll talk about that first. Then we're going to go straight into the VfB Dortmund match and beyond. So get comfortable, enjoy the show tonight, guys. And please do make sure you smash a like, comment along, whether you're watching live or subsequently, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. And make sure you check out our partners in crime, who, of course, are Bulinews and Bundesliga boxes. So get across, check them out if you want an authentic German t-shirt, or if you want to read up on your Bundesliga football, they're the places to be. Right then, Peter, so naturally we'll go on to Friday night's game in a short while, but we'll just kind of deal with the immediate, obviously, news coming out after that game, that Hertha Berlin decided to part ways with Sandro and replace him with Pal Dardai, old familiar, like I was saying, until the end of the season. So it's not like one of these things like Stuttgart have done, tying them into Seb Hornes for said amount of time, obviously kind of plastering over the cracks, so to speak. What are your thoughts on the appointment? Is it going to give them fresh impetus for the relegation run-in? Because they've looked beyond lost at times for a good while. So what are your immediate thoughts? More positive than when Stuttgart pulled the trigger?
Well, I mean, insofar as the relegation race is concerned, that is an excellent question. I'm afraid I don't have a good answer. My answer, I did cover Pal Dardai's introductory presser today. I told myself I wasn't going to do it because I had already covered several pressers involving him. And I thought, well, what's new to report? But I have to say that I confess I took a almost perverse pleasure in seeing the old Hungarian back. He, of course, admitted that he was planning to return to the Hertha Youth Academy this summer. And as a matter of fact, you may recall at the beginning of the 2021-2022 campaign, he effectively resigned after the third match day and said, maybe Pal would be better served in the youth academy. That was when Freddie Bobic was in charge, and he remained in charge for a couple more months before they brought in the glorious regime of Tayfun Korkut. So much fun for a tactical writer to report upon. But in any event, it is a short-term contract. It will be expiring at the end of the season, whether or not Hertha are relegated or if they stay in the league. And it was just a wonderful presser. Dardai explained that he's a longtime Hertha player, and now in his third stint as Hertha head trainer, as head coach. He said that he loves the club. He's devoted half of his life to shaping the youth academy. He talked about how his plans are indeed, hopefully, to return to the youth academy this summer after his latest station with the club is done. He brought up some youth academy players that he said that he'd worked with and he was going to give a shot, including this kid, Ibrahim Matza. And it was just a joyful affair. I mean, Dade was all smiles, cracking jokes, really, really glad to be back influencing the club that he loves so much. They had a public training session as well, 90 minutes, in which I confess I also watched, which Dardai was, he was running the training, sharing loads of laughs with the lads, joking around with Kevin Prince Boateng. He once got into a tiff with him on the training pitch. But it was just, the old football fan with the romantic heart really, really enjoyed seeing the old guy back. And, unquestionably, he's got a lot of strikers on this team. He's got Luka Bacchio, he's got Jovetic, he's got Ngankamp, he has Scherhand, which is another young striker, which he could potentially start. He's got Florian Niederlechner, if he could ever get him in gear. At the press, he said that he wanted a regular 10, and he hinted that Marco Richter might be a good candidate for that. So he has some ideas. He's in a great mood. It was great to see him, as a matter of fact. And they had this public training session. Everything was a nice publicity stunt. It was. And now after that, they're going to have 4 training sessions behind closed doors where he works with the team more intensively. We'll see about the results. But it made my day. I'm so glad I blew off the other things that I was going to do today to cover that Dardai presser, because I like a good youth academy coach. I like a guy who says the things that he does about, I'm here for the kids. I'm here for the lads. I'm here to help them develop. I'm here to kick their ass if need be. But I'm also here to, to guide them on the pitch. And so public relations doesn't necessarily translate to results. We know that much. But from a public relations standpoint, I think they really hertha finally did something right in that regard.
Yeah, agree. I think, like you say, it's a move that might create a bit more joy around the club and put a couple of smiles on faces. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see if it translates. Time will tell. I don't think Pal Dardai's reputation in amongst hertha at least will be affected by what happens. I mean, if he gets them out of trouble, his reputation goes even more sky high. Great for him. If not, I can't see it really harming it. His reputation is not like he's known as a tactical magician.
No, he's made many tactical mistakes, and sometimes he's, chastised players unnecessarily. Mateus Cunha is a good example, to take a recent example, when he slammed him for strolling and things like this. Paul Dardai, when I look at him, and there's Mark in the comment box, get well soon, Mark. We hope that you're doing okay. Sorry to hear about the tooth issues. I don't expect brilliance from this man. He's not a brilliant man. What he is a heartfelt man. And, just so committed to the youth of the club, so committed to the future of the club.
Yeah.
One of the things he said at the presser today is that too many of our talented youth players are leaving because hertha isn't a sexy enough club. Now, I don't know if it's possible to make hertha a sexy club or not, but and I don't know about his choice of words there, but you can tell that sometimes, even though his choices of words are a little bit clumsy, the guy really, really cares about this club that he was a longtime player for. He was the head coach for 4 years in his first stint, and he did get them out of relegation during the end of the 2020-21 campaign. You remember when he got a box of cigars as a present for helping them avoid relegation, and just was sitting there on the penultimate match day of the season and smoking a cigar and just saying, hard work is done. Now most of the summer is going to be spent with me sitting and smoking cigars. It's a wonderful scene. Yes. So they've got character back in the club. Whether or not he's got the tactical acumen to make it work, almost immaterial. This club has character for a very, very long time. He brings his own Petre back. maybe it's time to bring the older Dardai brother back as well. So that he and Martin can play together again. Maybe Vedad Ibisevic should suit up and get back on the pitch. Let's see. Yeah. It's good to have him back in the Bundesliga. We like characters in German football.
We do. We love characters. Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of character, then let's get into the review of the most recent match week. And let's obviously just start off with Dortmund Stuttgart in what was, I mean, it played with me, that game. I mean, going into it, I'll hand over to you in a second, Peter, obviously, to get your thoughts on obviously what was a crazy match. But from my point of view, for obviously from a Stuttgart kind of bias, you wanted them to test Dortmund. You wanted them to make it hard for them. So when obviously Daniel Marlin comes up with the cross for Sepp Haller, and then he backs it up with 2-0, and then the Mavropanos double booking in quick succession, you're thinking this could be really harmful for Stuttgart, not because they've already lost the game, but also they could quite easily ship 4, 5, 6, 7, which could be really important for the end of the season from a goal difference perspective. So not only was I worried that the game had already gone, I was worried that this goal difference could be really, really damaging. But lo and behold, that second half, I mean, the first goal that gets Stuttgart going is obviously jammy in the sense that Koulibaly's effort takes a big old deflection off Emre Can or Can. Dortmund already had this warning that first shot across the bow when Serhou Guirassy had a goal chalked off earlier on in that half after Milo played him through. And at the same time, BVB were not taking their chances. And then they can't clear properly a corner. It makes it 2-2. You're thinking, wow, this is going to be a fantastic point for my men, so to speak. And then again, straight down the other end into injury time, 90+3. Gio Reyna obviously gets on the end of a Zagadou block, who was didn't cover himself in glory for the first goal, I think, but we can kind of dissect the goals more clearly if we want to in a bit. And then, all the Stuttgart players and fans look on their arse, basically. You see the reaction by Bjorn Sousa when the goal goes in. He smashes the ball away thinking, what's happened? We've lost the game in the last minute. Then Wagnerman down the right, pull back cross. Again, not defended at all properly by Dortmund. And there, I was so happy. Not only the fact that VfB got the goal, but the man who scored it, I was just so buzzing. Silas, the man in the area, right time, right place, and takes his chance. What a ridiculous Bundesliga match.
Absolutely.
But that's why we love and follow this league. Peter does a bit more. The goals that Dortmund conceded.
Yeah, it was my responsibility as a Bundesliga beat reporter to watch this tape again and again, dissect it like it was the Zapruder film. But there was a lot of luck involved. You talk about the deflection off of Kahn, also off of Özkan on the other goal. When it comes to a clear culprit for any of the Stuttgart goals, the only one that is clear, unfortunately, was the debutant, 19-year-old Soumaïla Koulibaly, the highly talented French prospect who was brought into the BVB youth system and had to come on for Matt Hummels at the half because of Hummels was having circulatory problems. So with Süle out, your center half duo was Kahn and Koulibaly. And they not only made some mistakes, but they had some bad luck. Koulibaly was the one who failed to clear the ball on that Silas equalizer at 90+7. So that's really the closest thing you have to a BVB culprit. And Edin Terzic, in his post-match interview, after unleashing a diatribe and saying, I thought that we had already experienced the stupidest thing ever. He was referring to that Bremen match on Matchday 3, in which they conceded 3 goals in injury time.
Yeah.
Said, now I've really seen the stupidest thing ever. And, he just absolutely unloaded. But, he said to the post-match interview team on Sky, he said, I don't want to make Koulibaly the scapegoat. He's 19 years old. He was a debutant. He stepped into the breach. This is not, I don't want to make him the scapegoat. And you don't want to make the kid a scapegoat. I mean, he's just a kid. He's just a teenager. This was a debut on a big stage for him. Yes, it was his mistake. Actually, a couple of mistakes from him on a pair of the Stuttgart goals. What can you do? I mean, you're not going to have anything to gain by vilifying a 19-year-old kid. Really not one with that kind of talent. We should have been there, Rory. I wish I had been across the pond, because I want to take you to a Stuttgart game at some point, and that would have been, good Lord, that would have been one that you would never have forgotten. Yeah. I think you mentioned the most important thing there was that Griwasi actually had a goal disallowed prior to this comeback. So, as Terzic also conceded in his post-match interview, Dortmund conceded 4 shorthanded goals in 45 minutes. And I mean, but what can you? It was just a wild affair. It really was, and there was luck involved for Stuttgart. There was a lot of luck involved. I was surprised not to see Griwasi sent off on a straight red earlier in the first half. Did you see that challenge? I think it was on. Yeah. Was it on Guerrero, in which he came in and directly there. So there was a lot of luck involved from Stuttgart there. It's far too easy. It's far too lazy of an analogy to say, oh, this is just Dortmund being Dortmund. It's easy to say that because of the Bayern match, which took place concurrently, simultaneously, which we should also expend some time talking about. I still believe that Dortmund are a good team. I mean, there wasn't anyone on the pitch that had a truly terrible day. Royce was a little bit weak in relief. Brandt and Bellingham are still slumping a little bit. Bellingham was unlucky, of course. He hit the post, as did Marco Reus. Marco Reus hit the post. Yeah. So both of them hit the crossbar, as a matter of fact, on chances to close the game out in the second half. Mm-hmm. It was mostly a case of bad luck, and the fact that you had Emre Can and Soumaila Koulibaly as the center half duo, which was going to lead to some mistakes and everything like that. I wouldn't draw too many conclusions from it. Bayern slipped up as well. Bayern have their own problems. This title race is still very much alive. Yeah. And I would not count Dortmund out of this at all. But damn it, we should have been there. Well, look, there are going to be more crazy games at the Mercedes Arena. Well, I'll get you there at some point.
Absolutely. And Mark makes a good point in the comments. Great to see Wagnermann doing so well. Back-to-back goals in the Bundesliga. Obviously, technically gets the assist for the Silas goal as well. Maddening to think that he spent so much time on that bench. But I think a couple of the, particularly the first Dortmund goal makes me think that allowing, obviously, Wagnermann and Sousa to play as the wing-backs does exposes the back line as much as you want to say it. But so Marlon, obviously, the ever-improving Marlon, I have to say as well. I gave him his due credit when he came on against Bayern in that kind of no-win scenario, and he's picked up form-wise, and I think he is really becoming the player that Dortmund thought that they had signed, on a bit of a side note. But he, gets around Anton too easily to get the cross in for me, and then Zagadou is beaten blindsided by the fact that he's got Sepp Haller coming the other side of him. So from a defensive point of view, look, you're playing against Dortmund. They've got great attacking players. That's absolutely fine. And you expect to concede chances. But I think that and the second goal to an extent. Marlon is strong in his run, but can we get it clear properly beforehand? So I think there's certainly some things that almost not befell Dortmund, but yeah, they were very unlucky, but at the same time, they should have scored more goals that in terms of the chances that they created. And I think that a couple of the ones from VfB point of view were actually quite soft. But again, maybe that's my bias come in and wanting to dissect a bit too much.
We've talked a lot about, I think we've talked about Labadia's choice to start Waldemar Anton at right back over Wagnermann until we've been blue in the face on this pod. You know, we've brought it up 5-6 times, you know, weeks after week after week in a row, talking about this was Labadia's big tactical failing and Hoeneß's, you know, his tactical fix. These were easy fixes, you know. This was something that even, you know, people who are not the biggest tactics heads in the world can figure out. You know, now, okay, Zagadou is a problem a little bit, but what was the reason that he was starting? Ito was out. So yeah, Zagadou I don't think has had. I mean, he's had some real problems this year. The defensive line was going to be weaker without Ito in it. So you had that problem, but look, just again a wonderful match. Look, I saw Gio Reyna and Silas, two of my favorite players who have been struggling, both score in injury time. You know, that's
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like you say, in terms of over analyzing it, you could quite do it all night because there are so many things that happened. But in terms of, yeah, let's just enjoy it for what it was. Absolute pure Bundesliga magic / craziness. But yeah, so at the same time, of course, everyone would have been well aware, or if you weren't, Bayern were playing Hoffenheim at the same time. So the Saturday afternoon kickoffs, and they also dropped points. And in what was, I guess, again, sometimes you can be lazy and see a scoreline and think 1-1, not, you know, okay match, maybe not the most entertaining. But I think this game again had, you know, plenty to draw from. Obviously, Benjamin Pavard. Well, he got an early sighter in, but then eventually got a bit lucky from, I think it was a Kimmich effort, which he's ready to turn in to make it 1-0 to Bayern. I mean, Bayern weren't playing fantastic, but they were still well in control of the match. I think you probably agree to a certain extent there, Peter.
No, actually, I mean, the Bayern Hoffenheim was my tactical focus for this week's column, and not only was I shocked at how Bayern played at home in front of a packed house, but the players themselves were as well, as was their coach, as was Tuchel. I believe that Matthias de Ligt said, doesn't get much worse than what we brought on the pitch today. Okay, they're a little hard on themselves in that, you know, there were some ideas going on in the attack, particularly, I mean, Müller was trying to lay off constantly for Gnabry, and Musiala did well after he came on. I mean, Hoffenheim didn't supply a great deal offensively, and in point of fact, they were only able to equalize off of a Andrej Kramaric free kick, a beautiful free kick. But as Kramaric admitted afterwards, it was a little bit of sleight of foot there. That was the Calcio clever play. He took a little bit of a dive against Thomas Müller outside the box and admitted it as much. But what we have going on with Bayern now, I don't think it's been a very, very long time since I've seen them look that unmotivated, that unpolished, and really that lethargic at home. And the Allianz Arena crowd was mostly silent throughout it. You know, Tuchel, I believe, used the word lethargic afterwards, as did Müller. You know, a very, very low energy, low octane, uninspired performance from them. They have real problems now. Bayern is a club and a squad that is expected to show a reaction anytime they lose. And after the 0-3 loss to Man City, all of us expected some sort of reaction. We did not get one. They played very. Yeah, I mean, Pavard played well. His goal was what can you say? It was a Kimmich corner, and then Coman he picked it up from the second ranks after I think Brooks it was cleared, and then he saw that Pavard was in a good position. Pavard had an easy vertical spike finish, so that was just that was almost a fluke. Bayern's goal was.
It was,
and nobody else came really close besides Gnabry. Gnabry did fine, both as the true number 9 and later on when Tuchel reformatted into a 4-2-4 with Mathys Tel as the focal point. Gnabry was on the right. Musiala was driving the play together with Müller there, and they came up with some ideas. They looked okay, but they still didn't play with a sense of urgency. I mean, they did not play like a team that needed a game-winning goal at all. And so I'm actually far more concerned for Bayern than I am for Dortmund at this point. And I think that, look, Oliver Kahn looking catatonically depressed in the stands, looking like somebody just burnt down his house. Actually kind of looking like he almost feels like he just burned down the house. And he might have.
Yeah.
They have made this gamble. They made this coaching change in order to protect Bayern's season. And it's gone from something that could have potentially been a 3-trophy year to what might be the first 0-trophy year for Bayern in over a decade. And this is huge. I would go so far as to say they're in crisis. Do you expect them to pick up some confidence against Man City? And no, I mean, they don't have, maybe they'll get a 1-0 home win or something like that. But Mark wants us to the Monans. The way I put it in the column is it's like the Bayern soap opera. I hate soap operas. Can't stand soap operas. As a sports writer, I have to report on certain things, but there's certain stories that make me just want to go take a shower and do some volunteer work at like the soup kitchen afterwards. This Sadio Mane slapping Leroy Sané in the face. Will Smith, Chris Rock, Oscar Styles in the Bayern locker room on Tuesday. It's not a fun story to report on because you can't see how this is not going to be a good ending. I mean, Mane was already fighting the problems of being a transfer bust, because of his injury, because of the fact that Nagelsmann couldn't find a good tactical place for him, because he seems to regret coming to the Bundesliga now. He seems to regret coming to German football at this stage in his career. I think we got the question down there. Do you think Mane will stay? I don't know yet. The way these kind of incidents, they happen, and sometimes locker rooms are able to put it behind them, sometimes not. I think in the case of Bayern, where there's so much media scrutiny, there's so many ravenous press vultures, there's so many, so much tabloid press that's going to hop all over this in Germany. I don't see it coming to a good conclusion. Eventually, Mane and Sané are going to have to talk to the press about this. And when they do, these are two firebrand types who don't mince words. So I think you got probably a pretty split locker room at this point. I think Tuchel, I mean, the experiment is threatening to come across as one of the most cataclysmic failures in German football in over a decade. I mean, they took this chance on a late season coaching change, and practically nothing has worked out.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree. Like, obviously, the way they kind of explain it there, Peter, is completely understandable. In saying that Bayern are in crisis.
Look, prior to, and Balam says he brought that up last week. He did, and I said during the watch along, and I said not yet. But right after the watch along, we have this locker room incident with Sané and Mane. Mm-hmm. That is the last. I mean, you already had the Bayern soap opera with Oliver Kahn getting into Lothar Matthäus and that, in that Sky interview and things like this, and Salihamidzic taking all this heat in the German press and all of this stuff. And that's really what tipped the scales. That tipped the scales. That was the absolute last thing you needed, was for this team to go into a crumbling crisis. And, I fear to say the Hoffenheim result, what we saw from Bayern there, that barely qualified as a football match. That was Bayern going through the motions. They were trying a few things, but man, did they look timid. Man, did they look slow. They looked like a team that was so distracted. You don't see that from Bayern at home after a loss like that. You don't see that.
So we, from doing the show and from history telling us what usually happens, and like you said, Peter, usually when Bayern have a bad result, we associate them with bouncing back pretty well. And this result, or performance at least, was not certainly what you expected. And I obviously, in myself, very surprised that they didn't, from 1-0 up, see out the game at the very least and do a professional job of it, with those leaders that they still have in the team and those big characters. And as you mentioned, a dressing room that's possibly split down the middle by this incident that we've had. Obviously, a lot of the players were quite vocal in not their support for Nagelsmann, but thanking him for his efforts, and a good few of them saying that they'd had an okay relationship with him. Obviously, then they bring in Tuchel then, and I don't know. It was obviously a gamble. So.
Well, what's going on
so far has not worked.
Yeah, you remember the Tony Topalovic situation with Julian Nagelsmann not accepting Manuel Neuer's designated goalkeeping coach.
Yeah.
And the club went ahead and sacked Topalovic basically to side with Nagelsmann.
Yeah.
In support of Nagelsmann. And now they reverse course. I mean, when it comes to, it takes a lot of factors to put a team into crisis. It takes a lot of, soap opera subplots to do it. And what we've gotten now with Bayern is just an accumulation of too many soap opera subplots, to the point now that it's not about the football anymore. The players can't focus on the football. Tuchel is supposed to get this team back into their self-coached ways, the way that they operated under Hansi Flick. But now the team has so many distractions that they cannot coach themselves. So that's what the problem. I mean, that's my opinion on the matter. In any case.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it's good. It's good to talk about these things. In terms of the title race, and convince ourselves that Bayern won't end up being the champions come the end of match week.
I'm old enough to remember plenty of years where they weren't.
Yes, well, this is very true. And that whole reason why we do the show, of course, is to enjoy the Bundesliga. But if we should happen to have a rather tasty title race, which, since myself and Mark started doing the show, we probably not had, certainly up to this point in the season at least. So, no, it is really... It's not refreshing to see a team in crisis, because it would be great to see Bayern, Dortmund firing each week and being toe-to-toe, because they're both just brilliant teams and settled and everything else like that. So there is the kind of other side of it. That's not the case at the moment. That's fine. It still means that Bayern are 2 points ahead of Dortmund, and we shall see what... crazy things happen in the week ahead, and obviously going into the next set of fixtures, no doubt. Well, I mean, that's obviously taken us almost, or just over half an hour into the show. So we'll go back in time to Friday night's game, which the game itself, I think, certainly again deserves attention, not obviously just for the ramifications of Sandro Schwarz, his obviously departure, but Schalke, probably a few fans will be struggling to remember last time they hit 5 Bundesliga goals. And, some of the goals that they constructed and scored were really high quality. So obviously they went 1-0 up and were on the front foot straight away from Schalke, who curled in a lovely finish off the underside of the bar, I think it was, which always makes goals look better ultimately. To make it 1-0 after 3 minutes. Again, the same man then provided the assist, which was actually a ridiculously good cross for Bull to head home, which again he couldn't really miss. But the quality in terms of the football that was played out, again, really, really good from Bull to make it 2-0. Hertha then obviously tried to work themselves back into it. Jovetic was highly involved as he always is, being a quality player. And then they got that a little bit of luck, I guess, or what they needed to do when Schalke couldn't clear cross. Jovetic then provided the finish to make it 2-1. Then probably thinking half time, Peter, this could be a very tight and nervy second half, but lo and behold, Schalke did exactly what they needed to do and pretty much killed the game after a couple of minutes in that second half with the third goal. And then from there on, the last 2 Schalke goals filled with quality.
Indeed. It's now time to reverse course on Thomas Reis yet again and call him a tactical genius. I think the calls that he made personnel-wise in the 4-2-3-1 were quite ballsy. Michael Frey, who is the higher caliber striker, was benched in favor of Simon Topoda, Mr. Zweite Bundesliga striker, who has already announced that he's leaving Schalke at the end of the season. And he scored a goal. Dominic Drexler was preferred to Rodrigo Salazar. And the big one was that Tom Kraus was actually, who had started every match this season, was benched in favor of Dani Latza, the veteran, the former Mainz player. So what Reis did was he put a lot of guys in there who you would think were part of the B squad, were part of the second string, that would be better suited for Schalke in the Zweite Liga, and they produced. They produced an absolutely wonderful game, I think, on so many very levels. When we talk about Schalke, we have to talk about the fact that they lost a lot of players to injury in this game. Skarka actually was subbed off, as was the right back Cedric Brunner, and Reis's designated relegation fight goalkeeper Ralf Fährmann.
Yeah.
Alexander Schwolo back in between the sticks. He did okay off the bench, but we all know how that can end. Also, Schalke have, of all of the relegation candidates, by far the hardest schedule in the remaining 6 fixtures of the campaign. I'm going to go ahead and look this up really quickly. We've got Freiburg, Bremen, Mainz, Bayern, Frankfurt, and Leipzig. Now, that may not necessarily be the death knell for Schalke, because it might be the case that there's going to be some dead rubbers in there. Frankfurt with not much to play for. Leipzig probably on Matchday might not have much to play for. Werder, good point there as well. But and the injury news just keeps getting worse. I mean, Moritz Jens was back, but Maya Yoshida was out. And Jens was actually hurt again in the match. So we don't know whether Jens and Yoshida are ever going to play together again this season. So yeah, it's a tough road. It'll be a hell of a story if they can pull it off, really. But I mean, look, to watch the sheer joy of watching Schalke go to the Fankurve there in the Veltins Arena, and we talked about that in another match that we were covering, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks back. I mean, that's to watch them go to the Fankurve there in the Veltins Arena and take their bow and cheer along with the fans who have been loyal with them through these tough times. I mean, what amazing scenes. It's going to be very, very tough for them to avoid the drop. If they can do it, I'd be quite surprised, actually, with everything that they got going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like Mark said, this relegation race is proving rather tricky to predict from week to week, and it's making a fool of us all, which is fantastic, and that's not a problem. That a lot of people that I've seen from a reporting sense and a Bundesliga personalities are now strongly backing Stuttgart to now avoid the drop. With Schalke and Hertha now being the automatics in amongst Köln being, pulled into it, Hoffenheim being just about fine or perfectly fine, depending on whom you ask. But again, week to week, you can't call it. It's so exciting. It gives us so much to talk about. So that was another fine match for a Friday night game. It's a shame we didn't do a watch along for it because it would have been great fun. One of the best Friday night matches that we've had in some months, I think.
How the hell were we to know that Schalke that's going to be so?
We should have just gone live straight away. Yeah. But yeah, amazing match, amazing result for Schalke in the end. So yeah, that was obviously fantastic for them. Another match that I guess you can say involves relegation threatened teams we can cover. So Köln, obviously, they got themselves an important point against Mainz. Augsburg, were edged in a 5-goal thriller, I guess you can say, although goals at opposite ends of the match.
Yeah, it wasn't the thriller that we discussed on Matchday 11, no. The 3-3 thriller. And actually, it's a very, very bad result for Augsburg. Maaßen tried out some new tactics because he's dealing with a lot of injuries. Those were a colossal failure. He had to take off Gubny before the first half was out after Timo Werner scored a brace and set up Kevin Campbell's goal. So on 29 points, and we were discussing the magic numbers last week. 35 is what you need for survival in the Bundesliga. 29 for this stage of the season for Augsburg is definitely red alert. And 32 for Köln after they got that point at Mainz. I don't want to say it's safety necessarily, but they've put together a couple good matches in a row. They've got, I mean, when you're at 32, you just need that one more victory. And so, Köln, I would say, more or less pulled themselves out of the discussion this weekend. Bremen, despite the fact poor Bremen, I mean, they keep losing even though they're not, playing all of that poorly. They're on 32 points. I think they would probably be out of the discussion at this point as well. That leaves us with Hoffenheim, Augsburg, Bochum, Stuttgart, Schalke, and Hertha. I guess you could say 6 teams, but you still need 35 points. So if Köln or Bremen, continue to fail ways of doing that. But with Augsburg, I'm suddenly having a lot of concern because with Berisha out and Demirovic out, and Hovaleo just picked up his 10th yellow card of the season, so he's suspended again. And
suspended for our game.
Oh boy.
Yeah, completely agree. I think there could be trouble ahead for Augsburg for sure. Quick tip of the hat to Timo Werner. Not only obviously did he get his 100th Bundesliga goal, and he's one of the top 10 quickest to do it. So again, credit to the young man. His second goal was a delightful finish, kind of teeing himself up and hammering it home. Lovely to watch, and quite easy to kind of associate Werner with his obviously from an English point of view with his spell with Chelsea. And Werner is a fine player, as you say. He played a good, particularly first half. And that first time finish as well is not to be underestimated, using the pace of the ball to put it home on the Benjamin Hendricks cross. So Leipzig, good value for their win. And so if we then take ourselves back to the European race, I think, as well, so we can then comment on the two Sunday games, perhaps. So first and foremost, as you mentioned, Peter, Werder narrowly losing out to Freiburg, with a really important win for the away side, because at 1-0 down, they were looking, not clueless, but they were looking like they were running out of ideas in terms of, scoring that equaliser, and but a longer ball, which was then flicked on by Hertha. Really well finished by Roland Schalke, which I'm sure he's been waiting to do that for a long time, because he has been far from prolific this season. But he's a top player when he's on his game. That was a good finish to make it 1-1. And then a lovely header, guided header by Hertha to make it 2-1, and the away side get the job done. But as you mentioned, Peter, it's not like Werder are on the beach, so to speak. I think that's often a phrase that Mark likes to use, because they have been playing pretty well, and they're constantly panning to Füllkrug, who of course was missing this game, and it was in the stands. He could well have made a difference in this match. So unlucky for Werder, but as you said, I don't really consider them for a relegation race, if we're calling it, because they've not, they've been so fantastic for the majority of this season. So I think that's, like you say, they're one result ish from total safety for me.
Yeah, and Werder Freiburg was probably the best Sunday match.
It was.
The other ones, Bochum drew Union 1-1. It was, as we expected, a game that was going to have a lot of lulls. Watching Wolfsburg Leverkusen was a tedious exercise, because these are two teams who very much I felt should have had some hunger for the European race. But Kovic mismanaged everything tactically again. I could go all night about that. And Leverkusen, well, I mean, he wanted to rest Wirtz and keep him for Europe. So if you don't have Wirtz operating as that false nine, the system kind of falls apart. For the Freiburg match, I mean, these are two sides that Germans absolutely love. So it was great to see Maximilian Philipp score his first Bundesliga goal in over a year. The Wolfsburg loanee, former Dortmund player who came back after a year in Russia. I thought their combo play forward was quite aesthetically pleasing. I think Weiser and Bittencourt did a very, very good job as usual. And Philippe he slotted right into Füllkrug's role. It was a regular 3-5-2, and I think he did a really great job. It's, 6 games winless on the trot now for Werder. Still, it's hard to be concerned about them, because they seem to. I mean, we began this pod talking about character and Dada and things like that. This is just a team with so much character. Füllkrug is the comeback story of German football in the last 5 years, even when he's not playing. Dux is a great comeback story too. Mitchell Weiser, maybe one of the greatest. I really hope he plays for Algeria. That would be so madly interesting. They're I think a team that has already overcome a lot of adversity this season. Let's not forget they got crushed by Köln, of all teams, 7-1 or something like that. The first game back from the calendar year. And they really had to fight their way back. Niklas Schmidt is another guy with great character. I mean, we talked about him on the pod because he's one of the players who's been a little bit openly open with the press about his struggles with depression and so on and so forth. I think this is a team of fighters. I think it's a team that's resilient. I think it's a team that really will find a way to secure the necessary points to ensure survival. And Köln probably at this point too, we saw some good character from them as well. We saw Davy Selke not score, but play on with that bloody turban on his head. That's always important. I think that they'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so
I mean, it really, they got the talent. They shouldn't be in the relegation race, but I mean, 29 points at this stage of the season. It's you got to put together, at least 2 more victories and a draw in these final 6 rounds. That might happen.
Yeah. I mean, time will tell, but like you say, it's hard to be worried about them. Obviously the next match on Sunday had obviously implications for the top 4 and the relegation race, but it was probably the side who were threatened by relegation that might consider themselves unlucky not to take all 3 points. Actually, the first half I think was quite a quiet-ish affair. Union hit the bar from Roussillon's his cross, and then we were all waiting for a moment of quality, which eventually was provided by Juranovic, whose set pieces and signature from Union should be considered a huge plus, because his set piece delivery, corner or free kick is spectacular. So fantastic goal to make it 1-0 just before the half. But then things obviously turned on its head for the second half. Petre, Bochum obviously came back into it. I mean, they got a penalty. It was from Laduni, obviously one of those ones where defenders swinging their foot to try and make a clearance, and the striker either gets in front of them or is just happens to lead. And so obviously the ref goes to the spot. Steiger, no problem, making it 2 pens in a row. Pressure situation as well, not a problem. Straight down the middle, 1-1. Then Union go down to 10 men. And again, you're thinking, right, okay, so tricky to see this out. Only a few minutes later, they think they've scored. Kevin Behrens running onto a through ball, but is narrowly offside after the ball had hit the post and gone in off Ryman. So then we stay at 1-1. And then this game should have been decided, or could have been decided on 2 late chances for both sides. So I think, the Hoffmann header from the corner is just, he does everything he can. I think Hoffmann is just denied by a fantastic reaction stop by Renault. To his left, brilliant reactions, and that keeps it the case. Then Geraldo Becker charges down the right-hand side and puts in across to the back post where Kevin Behrens is waiting. And wow, that probably should have been 2-1, shouldn't it? And we all of Union, RB, and Freiburg win. An entertaining 1-1 again, I would say. But the Werder game was probably slightly better on the Sunday. But interesting game. Would you say you're worried at all from an Union perspective? Obviously, like I've literally just said, they certainly have their chances still to win the match. 10 men down, and playing against a Bochum side who are fighting for their lives. So, anything that you took from that match that you think that you're slightly worried from their top specs?
Yeah, it's tough with Union because they can fall into these spells where they'll go 2-3 games without exhibiting a consistent scoring threat. I'm glad you brought up Juranovic. Fischer trusted him immediately with the set pieces as soon as he came in. I would say that Juranovic was the best signing of the winter transfer window in the Bundesliga, but Ludovic Ajorque hasn't beat.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very good match from Khedira, who did sign a new deal today, I believe. I think, he did not have a very good game as the midfield maestro. There's these frustrating spells with Union where they just don't want the ball at all. They're not pressing on it. They're not trying. When they have it, they're cycling back and things like that. That can be a little bit frustrating. I was also shocked. I believe that's the first time since fans were allowed back in the stadiums that the Stadion an der Alte Fürsterei did not sell out. Okay, it was 60 seats short of a sellout, but ordinarily in Köpenick, you got the full 22,012 packed in there and then some. So I don't know, even the locals didn't seem all that interested in this game. I still think Union probably finishes top four because who exactly is going to displace them? Freiburg have their own issues and own inconsistencies. Leipzig in the top four, whether we like it or not, but Leipzig can leapfrog Union and they still finish top four.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Leverkusen, they have the talent, they could get on a run, but then they have the European schedule to worry about as well. They're the only one of these clubs left that Freiburg and Leipzig are still in the Pokal. But that have something else to concentrate on in that tough Thursday turnaround. So it might be the case that Union kind of coast to a top four finish, with draw here, narrow win there, as just sort of quietly settle in there in either third or fourth place, which is not the best thing from an entertainment perspective, but it's obviously a great thing for German football that we're going to have Union in the Champions League next year. We're certainly all very excited about that. Well, okay, it hasn't happened yet, but it will be quite exciting if it does happen. Yeah, it's strange that the match didn't sell out. I probably, I had there was a bigger story this weekend coming out of Union with Dirk Zingler, the president was he was doing an interview with the Welt am Sonntag about the new investor model for Bundesliga clubs. The DFL is going to try to set for a vote. We're going to keep 50+1, absolutely, but we're going to allow more long-term investment in Bundesliga sides. And Zingler just went ahead and bashed Hertha and was like, they got Lars Windhorst, they got the 777 consortium and all of this stuff. And then some other journalists revealed that Union were being backed by a Luxembourg consortium and things like that. Okay, so we're getting a little bit too technical here. I understand that. But that was kind of strange that Zingler was bashing Hertha for taking investor money, and then it got revealed that Union are taking some investor money as well, which, by the way, so long as these are still fan-owned clubs, is perfectly fine. They can take some investor money.
Yeah.
But well, okay, we're getting off tangent here. So
I think the only game that we've not discussed was another 1-1 draw. So there were quite a lot of draws this weekend. Frankfurt 1-1 with Gladbach. Not too much to take from this again. Obviously, Gladbach as mid-table as it gets, really. One team that you could say could, pack in their sandals for mid-table mediocrity. Frankfurt still struggling from a Bundesliga perspective from their form. Of course, Kolomuani scoring as per usual. Again, Marcus Thuram in good touch, setting up Jonas Hoffmann for his goal. Going 1-0 up. Frankfurt came back into the game, I think, particularly in the second half, didn't they? They were much better. Testing Jan Sommer's replacement, Jonas Omlin, who is, I think he looks like a goalkeeper. He made a couple of big saves, actually, in the second half, particularly, to make it stay at 1-1. So, again, denying Frankfurt. Gladbach, point whatever. Doesn't mean too much to them at this stage. Hard to take too much from that.
The way that I described it, it wasn't technically a dead rubber, but it oftentimes felt like a dead rubber because it was confirmed this week, which we knew this already, that Daichi Kamada and Evan Ndika will be departing Frankfurt on freeze.
Yep.
Gibble Soud, Jesper Lidstrom, and Randall Colomwani also want to leave. Probably so too does head coach Oliver Glasner. So you had a lot of players on Frankfurt who were playing to avoid injury. Gladbach didn't have terribly much to play for afterwards. It wasn't. I mean, there were some entertaining moments in the second half, and of course we got another great Colomwani goal. We're going to say Bundesliga fans we're just going to have to savor those, as many of that we can get. But yeah, it felt like a dead rubber, or if anyone's curious, Germans call it the race for the golden pineapple. But it felt like one. And as a matter of fact, in the post-match interview, they were talking to Omlin and they were talking to Roland Werkus. And they didn't want to ask him about the game at all. All the German press wanted to talk about is, what do you think about the criticism that Jan Sommer is getting at Bayern? That's the only questions they wanted to ask him. So
yeah,
even the German press after the match was just like, Frankfurt, they're not in a European fighting mood at this point. They're in a rebuilding mood, and Gladbach are the quintessential mid-table mediocre German side, have been so for 3 years. So
yeah, they are. Yeah, it was a matchup of two teams that are being not torn apart, but are, as you say, going to be rebuilding significantly throughout the summer.
Yeah, that's right. Rami Bensebaini and Lars Schindel and Marcus Thuram also all confirmed departures this week. So you had two teams with 5 confirmed departures between them. I think
the fact that we got 2 goals is probably quite impressive, actually. So that there we have it. Yet another 1-1 draw, but yeah, another fine weekend of Bundesliga action. It was absolutely fantastic to watch. So many talking points, which we've already covered, and there'll be many more to come in the weeks that follow. Every match now, apart from maybe Frankfurt Gladbach, has something riding on it. And it'd be fascinating to see how the relegation, European and title race concludes, of which, of course, we will be covering match week by match week and doing as many watch-alongs as we possibly can do. I think that's a perfect time to bring the show to a close tonight, whilst my internet is still behaving itself forgivingly, so that's grand. So thank you to everyone that has tuned in this evening or whenever you're watching. Thank you very much. If you're podcasting, that's great. Do let us know any feedback that you have, any comments. Please do smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, or if you want to do it via podcast, make sure you do that and leave a review. And obviously to make sure that you check out Over the Bar on Twitter at Over the Bar FB and Over the Bar Extra. Go to the website, make sure you check out all the different articles that are coming out right now, so otbfootball.net, and of course everything else that is associated with the channel and our brilliant partners, Bulinews and Bundesliga Boxes. I think that is the perfect way to end this evening. So thank you all. Thank you, Peter. And we'll catch you in the next one.